Welcome to our first Sunday in our Lenten season, a Sunday in which we always hear the gospel of our Lord's temptation in the desert. In our Lenten season, yes, we are looking forward to the Easter celebration of our Lord's resurrection and recalling our baptism into his life, death, and resurrection, and some of us preparing to be baptized. But for those of us who already are baptized, one of the things that we do during Lent is receive the sacrament of reconciliation. We go to confession, the sacrament of penance. And that is part of our recalling baptism, it's part of our being renewed in the mercy of God. And so today, looking at our Lord's temptation in the desert, I'd like to take a look at how we can be ready and most beautifully receive the Lord's grace in the sacrament of reconciliation. Before we get to our Lord's temptations in the desert, we have two beautiful readings, the first reading and second reading, which point out what we are confessing as Christians. I remember hearing a discussion in a class of young people as they were preparing for the sacrament of reconciliation. What is the most important thing? Because we get nervous and we fixate on what do we have to confess, which was the answer most of the kids give. Well, the most important thing is I have to come up with something to confess. Okay, or someone said, well, you have to do the penance afterwards. Different answers came up what the most important thing in the sacrament of reconciliation was. And finally, one young student said, the most important thing is what God does. And that's the truth. We only go to the sacrament of reconciliation because God is merciful. God forgives. Otherwise, why would we go? And so in our opening readings today, the first and second reading, we hear of what we confess. Moses beautifully instructing the people in the first reading about confessing their faith, taking a look at salvation history. This is something that's always good for us to be aware of, our own salvation history. How has God already moved in my life? For some of us, it might be very simply and perhaps very raw, the fact that I'm here, I've made it, I'm still here. Whatever I've gone through, whatever difficulty I've been living, God has carried me through to this point. And that is a beautiful statement of faith. And for others, we may more readily be able to point to certain major things that we can say very joyfully, look, God has blessed me with this, with that, with this relationship, with this opportunity, etc. But one way or another, we all can come to God confessing our faith by way of seeing what God has done, our own salvation history. The second thing from our second reading is we take a look at what we confess in reference to our own relationship with the Lord. St. Paul talking about the fact that we confess that Jesus is Lord. And this is for anyone and everyone, whether Jew or Greek. And so we confess that right now I have my relationship with God. I know my God is the one who made me and loves me and will forgive me. I confess. This is why I can come to the sacrament of reconciliation, because I believe in God's love right here and right now. And so what do we confess? And this is what we see our Lord facing in his three temptations. He is tempted to turn rocks, stones into bread. He is tempted to jump from the pinnacle of the temple and fall, but nonetheless be unhurt. And he's tempted to bow down to Satan and receive what Satan can give him, power over things that are just passing. I'm going to lean on St. Ignatius of Loyola for his way of seeing our ultimate three sins, our ultimate three challenges in the life that we live in overcoming sin, and yes, how they relate to these three temptations that our Lord lives. So the first one, he is tempted because he's hungry to turn stones into loaves of bread. St. Ignatius calls this the temptation to sensuality, the reality that in our human nature, we love to taste, we love to see, we love to hear, we love to touch. This is part of the beauty of how we've been made. But if we live in a way according to that reality, we fail to live at times our higher reality as a spiritual person, a person of body and soul. There are moments, beautiful moments, when we celebrate our faith and use things that we taste and see and hear to help lift us up in faith, but we also recognize that we can turn to things that we taste, hear, and touch, etc., that we see in ways that take us away from God, whether we eat too much, whether we look at the wrong things, whether we listen to things that are not helpful to us, etc. And so, the first reality that we look at in terms of what do I need to confess, what do I need to move beyond, to be healed from, the sensuality that takes us away from God. The second thing then, the temptation to make a show of himself, jumping from the pinnacle of the temple and not being hurt. We see in St. Ignatius seeing this as the temptation to vanity. It's a kind of look at me reality. Look at me, I'm special. Look at me, I can do this. Look at me, I've done that. This is, yes, we're moving beyond sensuality, but we're living our life more from the point of living for our ego. Yes, we are a body-soul creature, but we are not that merely unto ourselves, self-focused, but we live our life with the reality of belonging to others and ultimately belonging to God and not trying to take all the attention to ourselves. And so, this is the second challenge for us in the life of spiritual maturation, life of human maturation. Firstly, yes, that we move beyond sensuality, and secondly, that we move beyond our own ego, our own self-centered way of wanting attention, of wanting to be special. Then thirdly, we take a look at our Lord and that temptation for power and for all that Satan can promise him by bowing down to him. St. Ignatius sees in this ultimately the temptation to pride. Pride, the ultimate sin, the fact that everything is pertaining to ourselves. This is even more than sensuality, more than vanity, which are parts of our growing up as a human and as a Christian. But pride is the ultimate reality that everything is only seen through the way I wish it to be. I want it to be. I want to have it. And this is what ultimately takes us away from the plan of God, from the providence of God, from the mercy of God. It doesn't mean that we turn into, when we move beyond this reality, that we lose, as it were, the strength of who we are. I remember seeing Mother Teresa as she was going about opening one of the houses for her sisters. I remember meeting John Paul II. These two saints were not pushovers at all. They were not proud, but they definitely knew that they were living in God's plan, in God's providence, and that was their strength. I pass on these three reflections on our Lord's three temptations, hopefully as a way to take a look at, when I prepare for confession this Lenten season, what should I be looking at that I know that I need for not just forgiveness, but healing, what I know I need to grow beyond. We will never be free from temptation. That is a part of life. If I may paraphrase St. Ambrose, the devil wishes us to be tempted that he may make us fall. God allows us to be tempted that he may crown us. We face temptations not in a fear, but rather in the recognition, this is part of my human journey. And in the grace of God, he helps me grow beyond them. And in the grace of God, if I have fallen, he raises me up in his forgiveness. This is the beauty of our journey to God and the grace that he gives us in the sacrament of reconciliation. May your Lenten journey continue to be blessed.